also what I learned is that when we're comparing is you want to compare to sales that are closest to the date that you're looking at purchasing the property. For example, if something was sold a year ago, the market, there's so much change in that market in just that local suburban area, and is that actual comparable because it's so far away from like it's a year ago. But there's some cases that may actually only be the last sale in that area that is a comparable, which makes it difficult for you to get a really good judgment of the value of that property at the current market rate, right? So sometimes you just need to work with what you've got, I guess.
Step into my office, mate.
Yeah, step into my You're just licking your lips.
I'll quickly, so there's location, we talked about that. Then there's the land size for housing. And by that, obviously, the larger the land, obviously, the more valuable it can be. And then you're also looking at the improvements. So there's 4 elements: location, land, improvements, and market conditions.
Ooh, okay.
So market conditions, exactly what you touched on. Yes, it was 12 months ago. Often that is like the best sales you can find are obviously within the street, but you don't...
Within the street, sold within a month.
Oh, yeah, that's the dream.
That's the dream, right?
Yeah. But not very often it's not the case that they're there. But you're basically taking those 4 key elements and you're putting your thesis together as to what you think it's worth. So I go through that, do that with residential property.
So let's go through each of those. Let's go through market conditions and then through the other 3. Is there anything else to touch on the market conditions? Or does market conditions usually come last?
Like market conditions, well, just in my hierarchy,
okay.
It's just the way I've always been. I mean, I've developed out these obviously
that
teams
process,
and processes when you're buying property, and that's how I visually look at it. And it's also great for our team to check when they're going through. All right, it is superior, inferior. Or is that a superior over all property, or is that comparable? So location, we've touched on that. Land, we've touched on that. Just understanding, like, is it larger or smaller? And then the improvements, well, what's the level of improvements that are on that block of dirt? Is it a 4-bed, 2-bath with a pool, modern house, and the one you're trying to buy is a 4-bed, 2-bath with 2 cars that was built in 1990. So you say that's a superior improvement. And then the market conditions, well, you need to be sort of really in the market to know where you're sort of sitting. So there's 2 ways you can justify this for everyone out there. When you're buying, you want to know, well, yes, there was a sale 6 months ago. What was the market condition like then? And this is the biggest downfall that most buyers are having, is because they come into a market generally for 3 months and they're trying to buy within that 90-day pre-approval period. And they're looking at sales in the past. And they're like, oh, well, that sold for $1 million, 6 months ago. So it's very similar to probably we're looking at. I only want to pay $1 million, and I say, fantastic. I know you only want to pay $1 million, but at the moment, from where we were 6 months ago to where we are today, it's actually a more competitive market. So prices are increasing, and that's where you've got to find not only sales that are in the direct vicinity, but also really recent sales within the last, ideally 1 to 2 months. But that 3-month period, you can actually do that search on realestate.com. You can break down what was sold in the last 3 months, 6 months, last month, and then 12 months. So.
I want to come back to median sales price and realestate.com.au, so I'm just going to we'll double click on that soon. But I want to touch on if the market is moving fast in that 90-day period, like something sold 6 months ago for $1 million, and you can't really find that many comparables in that one sort of area or that one suburb. If you went to a suburb adjacent to it that has a recent sale that is sort of similar to the property you're looking at purchasing in the other suburb, and that was sold a month ago, and then there was something that was sold six months ago, could you look at the growth of something that was at $1 million that sold for 1.1 within that 6 months of that adjacent property and see okay, that linear growth rate may be similar to the suburb that I'm using, and would that help you give you a valuation on the price?
done. That's good. So there's where the data point.
I just made that up.
No, it's great. So I lean on data as well, and I mean, there's a lot of valuers out there that are really great at what they do. I learnt a lot coming out of that space and going into actually buying property for people. It's a completely different mindset, and also you're not just walking in. There's a lot more at play when you're buying for people, because it's their money and you want to do the best thing by it. You don't want to spend too much, but you don't want to miss out on a great opportunity either. So there's a real balance there. So you've got to be. I feel you've got to. It forces you to be a much more accurate appraiser, valuer, as you go. But there's a lot of data out there now. So what I do for that case is, if there was that sale in 6 months ago, I look at what had that suburb done on a growth rate over the past 6 months, and you can go in, you can find that data, you can find 3 months or 12-month growth rates, and you can even apply that. So if it went for $1 million, I like round figures, and it's that suburb has grown 6% in the past 6 months or 12 months, then you go, well, we just add 6% on top of that $1 million. So you can kind of go, well, based on that, you're still looking at that 1 to $1.05 million, 1.1 sort of range, and you go, oh, okay, that's starting to make more sense. And then you also lean on direct comparables as well to have a look around. If you do need to go into that adjacent suburb, some people don't know whether it's a superior suburb or not. And a quick little check method, which I use just because I buy around Australia as well. Just Google, go on realestate.com or multiple different websites and go, what's the median house price for houses in that location? And it's a quick little gauge, and it's not always accurate, but it's just an extra layer of research you're putting on top. And if you say in Sydney, you could have a location that is the median house price is $1.2 million, and then in the location you're buying in, like say Epping at the moment, it could be 1.3, and you're like, oh well, they're very similar, but Epping is seen as slightly superior based on median house price. But then you also need to zoom out and go, well, where is it that people want to be? So having that local knowledge of
in that suburb, where do they want to be in that suburb? What streets?
Yeah, or even just like generally with Sydney, people want to be closer towards the city, so house prices, and that is pretty common for most locations. Gold Coast is a bit different because it's linear, in that you get the boaties who live up north in Runaway Bay, Hope Island, and then you get the coast surfers who want to be Burleigh, Palm Beach, Coolangatta way. So and then you get in the middle, the people who want to be out in like this the rural residential locations. Maybe the rank depends on purchase price. But there's some quick little tips and tricks to help you justify that. And what you're really doing is gathering your an understanding based on comparable sales evidence as to what this property is going to be worth. If you are still unsure, then you're going into breaking it down, going, well, what's the land worth and what are the improvements worth? With investors, there's also the capitalisation approach, which is taking the income and going, well, what are these properties selling for on we call it a yield basis. So if you have an income of, say that property is earning $25,000 a year in rent, and you have a purchase price at $500,000 to get a yield, you divide 25,000 by 500 to get a yield. And that's a very common approach for commercial property. They mainly lean on the income, so that's your primary method.
Well, there's financing based on the income alone in commercial compared to resi.
And resi is less weighty because there's more owner occupiers in that space. And it's very difficult.
When you say less weighty, like you mean less.
People don't put as much weight on the capitalisation approach with residential. And that's like when you start buying in these property, or you're going to auctions, or you're putting bids on, you can do all the research in the world and you might be the most accurate in your assessment of where value sits. However, you're competing against emotional end users, and you can't. That's what I say to clients. I can't value human emotion on the day, but I can understand the heat in the market and say, well, this is a scarce asset that doesn't come up too often. So yes, all the comparables are saying it's worth $1 million. However, I'd be going in with that mindset of, what are you willing to walk away from this property for? And often, unfortunately, it just takes time to educate people. They see that, and they're obviously they don't know me prior to this, so that they've got their a bit of a guard up as well. And they're like, well, you're just convincing me to try and buy it for $1.05 million when it's only worth $1 million. And to which I say, it's completely fine. Let's just have a go, and then they'll see that, oh, actually the heat in that market, and they've lost that property now.